I have an interesting. It's sort of a backstory. It's from 14th of April. It's a few weeks old. We didn't do Brains Matter last week. Sorry. Called "Shunning the Scoop: Sidestepping the Race to Publish" by Christina Lingard, Joanna Littlefair, Christine Bowman, and Elizabeth Clare. These sound very Swedish. Are they from Sweden? Lingard, that is such a Copenhagen. They're Danish.
That's
Oh, and London. All right. Yes, Canada also one. Okay. The authors are from all over the world. Basically, what happens when a researcher finds out that research very similar to their own is already being conducted? What if they find out that said research is also very close to being published? So this is a question for scientists all the time. The reason being, journals, and I should do some little introspection here, are more likely to publish your work if it is a major advance. They're more likely to say, okay, this is new, we did not know this. This really adds to the, scientific body of knowledge that we have. We learned something new from this, so it's important, people will want to read it, and it's relevant, and we will publish it. If somebody else discovers the same thing and they publish it, a year before you can, then when you try to publish your work, the journals will say, well, we already knew this. You're not telling us anything new. Why do we care if it's not new? And to a certain degree, the answer to that is, of course, that the more replicates there are, the better. But I can't deny that this is a criteria that we look at when we evaluate manuscripts. Like, is this a sufficient advance for a journal?
Don't publish in high impact journals. That's not what happens.
So let me see. So what they've done. Here is so basically there were two manuscripts. I will link both of them. So one is called "Measuring Biodiversity from DNA in the Air," here, and the other is called, you're never going to believe this, "Airborne Environmental DNA for Terrestrial Vertebrate Community Monitoring." So basically, they're looking at airborne DNA and use that to estimate biodiversity. To monitor vertebrate communities, and they're basically the same paper. Well, not the same, but they're very close papers. One by Christina Lingard as first author and Christine Bowman as the last, and the other by Elizabeth Clare as first author and Joan Littlefair as last. And these four authors, essentially, instead of being worried that they would get scooped, they said, what, let's cooperate, let's collaborate, let's co-publish our papers. And they did. They both came out in Current Biology on the 7th of February. Literally, pages 693 to 700 for one, and 701 to 707 for the next. So literally back-to-back publications. And yeah, so they basically said, instead of being worried about scooping each other, how about we publish both our works at the same time?
But this is the elegant solution, right?
Yeah. So I'm reading here, how did you embark upon the project? Who were the players in each research team? They're both, they had their funding. I wonder, your governance. So Claire was saying, well, what was your first response? Well, it was panic. When we realized there were two twin papers, we had no idea what stage the other team had reached. So, yeah, of course, you can see at a conference where they're at, but not exactly what they've done. They hadn't published them on preprint servers, I think. Yeah.
Oh, they had.
So the reason they figured this out is because one of them put their paper on a preprint server. For anyone who doesn't know, preprint servers are essentially, well, say you have your manuscript written up and it's ready to get published. From that point onwards, until it's actually published, it can take a very long time. And maybe before you even submit it to a journal, you want some comment, you want some feedback. So what people do is they put it on a preprint server, they call it. It's explicitly, defined as not peer-reviewed. There's no, requirement that your manuscript has to reach a bar of novelty. It has to be scientifically solid and, proper science. But if your work is proper science, you can get it on a preprint server without any trouble. Um, and as long as it's within the topic of the preprint server. And then anyone can read it and anyone can comment on it and people can share it on Twitter. And most of the time, there are some journals who don't, but most journals will not consider this like, well, you already published the work, so we don't want it. This still does happen with some journals, but most modern, up-to-date journals are fine with preprints. And this is how they discovered. So one team put their paper on a preprint, the other team saw it, read the paper, knew it wasn't published yet, but usually when it reaches a point where it's on a preprint server, it is almost ready. Yes. So okay, they figured they're very close. They're this close, and maybe we still have a way to go. Maybe we don't. And they decided to join forces. It's wonderful. I think this is a really good idea.
Yeah, but they did apparently already know each other.
Of course, when you work on almost the same topic, you must know each other in the field.
Know each other, and then they also somehow liked each other, because I've also, like, there are also stories of people where they know the other one is doing something like that, but they will never work together for some reason,
Yeah,
So
I mean,
it's
there are scientific
a case.
rivalries. There are disputes and people who don't like cooperating. There is also, it's kind of a different topic, but it can be very difficult to collaborate with another team. You have to manage the expectations, and maybe person from team A asked, "Hey, can you do this experiment for us?" And person from team B says, "Well, okay, sure, but it's going to take me 6 months, so I expect to be first author, or whatever." And team A doesn't get that or doesn't agree, and they take their results but put them somewhere in the middle, and then team B feels like, well, we've done all this work, but you don't properly credit us. So
Like,
this can be difficult, and if you have experiences like this with a certain team, that can set some bad blood. That is perfectly understandable. So you were saying?
I don't know what I was saying. No, it's not so easy, and you can have very different approaches to the same topic also, that you don't agree on certain things even.
Absolutely. I mean, we wouldn't be scientists if we didn't question each other's methodology and
all the time.
All the time. So it makes sense that there is some animosity between some scientists. This also varies a lot by what scientist you're talking to. Like, I know scientists who are, well, I wouldn't say universally beloved, but many people, they agree with them. They're happy with them. They're happy to collaborate. They're happy to talk with them. They reach out a lot. They're active in the community. Then you have scientists that people try to avoid because they get bad experiences or a bad rep. Just like regular people. It's almost like scientists and normal people sometimes.
Oh, how could this happen?
I have no idea. But yeah, they apparently knew each other and set up a collaboration. I must caveat this one again. So like I said, when you have your paper ready, before it's actually published, it takes a long time. So one of the reasons for this, it has to go through peer review. So other experts, sometimes anonymous, sometimes not, in the field will look at the paper, will look at what you've done. Your methods, your results, your methodology, did you take all the proper controls? Did you do everything correctly? Is your work relevant still? And sometimes this process is really easy and it takes a month or two. And, they send it back, you make some changes to your manuscript maybe to get it according to what the reviewers want. Sometimes you disagree with them and, you don't, but you argue back and forth and you get it resolved. And then, maybe after 3-4 months, you have your work ready to be published. Other times, the reviewers find massive problems with your work and say, hey, this needs a lot more experiments, this needs more controls, you didn't do this thing that you really should do, and, that's going to take 6 months. It can easily take a year. And, one paper, if you submit both your papers at the same time, and one of these has a very easy review process where, you need 3 months to get it ready, and the other one has 9 months of work before it's ready, what do you do?
Yeah, that's...
So it does make back-to-back publications a little bit more difficult, because the team that's ready, maybe they need that paper out for a grant application, or they need it for a student so that the student can defend, or a postdoc so that the postdoc can move on. And then the other team says, oh, okay, you're ready with your work, but we need another 6 months. So, you just keep waiting for it,
yeah.
The fast team really has to be very generous here and willing to sit on that paper. And if they want to, they could have just published it and it would be out and they would be the first and they wouldn't suffer directly. I mean, of course, the other team wouldn't be happy with them,
But I think they were already like kind of similarly paced or something, like because they write about this a little bit, so they wrote the editor also together,
right.
right? Together, they coordinated with the editor even.
You would have to. If you want to publish your manuscripts back to back, you would have to coordinate with an editor. That's right. And the editor will try to make the review process, take about as long. But
Yeah,
these are difficult things to do. And I understand
yeah,
why it doesn't happen more often. But again, I'm very happy to see that shunning the scoop. But these people found a way to co-publish their work. And, we're better for it. So well done. Christine Lindgaard, Elizabeth Clare, and Joanne Littlefair and Christine Bowman. Cool. Shall we go on?
yes.